posters I designed in this video are already available, and the proceeds are going to support Stop Killer Robots, an anti-AI organization that opposes AI use, particularly in war and weaponry. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. After my videos on why I'm anti-AI, the AI art stands were salty. LavenderTowne's at it again. She's so arrogant, thinking that Nightshade's going to keep her art safe no matter how many times we tell her that's not the case, because of her arrogance and the fact that she's taunting AI artists. So I made a Laura of her art. Testing it now, we'll post on Civet AI. So just to make it crystal clear, their motivation for doing this is A, to punish me for my arrogance of trying to protect my work, and B, to disprove Nightshade. Now to me, these do not look correct.
I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is.
So to help these guys out, I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how to correctly imitate my style so it actually looks like my style, and as a bonus, drawing it yourself won't require catastrophic damage to the environment. We're also going to talk about why using this stunt to try to disprove Nightshade's efficacy actually just proves that the biggest advocates for AI image creation have no idea how this technology works. So let's learn how to draw in my style. My style features very large eyes with noses and mouths closer to the chin. One of my biggest signature things is changing the iris to a recognizable shape that matches what the character is thinking or looking at. Try to make it a simpler shape so it works well with the face. It's also worth noting that when I do those little eye spikes at the bottom, I actually draw out the whole eye with all those little eye bag details, and then I cut them out. You don't want to try to draw them at the same time, it just makes that bottom lid look really wobbly. I'm also going to put a couple different eye shape ideas, as well as a variety of different nose shapes that I commonly use, and the way I draw different hair textures. I try to balance the detail inside the hair, just having like kind of a offbeat pattern of where we see like breaks in the bangs, those little dashy lines that show the texture. You want to not overload it or else it looks really messy. Also, I did a little simplified version of the proportions of the head and face and eyes, just to help you guys if you're trying to draw in my style, like where to place all of those features and about how big to make them. I hope this helps if you wanted to try drawing in my style. And now we need to talk about whether or not the style Laura that this person created proves that Nightshade doesn't work. Well, definitely not, for a variety of reasons. The first reason is that Lauras are not the same as like OpenAI, the way that these big corporations train their generative AI. A Laura is actually like a modifier on a pre-trained AI. So whatever you put into the Laura, it's not going to affect the system in the same way. And you would expect someone who lurks around Reddit's like AI wars and defending AI art, you would expect them to know that, but it seems like their interest in tech doesn't translate into tech literacy, which is a really strange phenomenon I've noticed. This also proves that they don't know how Nightshade works. Nightshade is a technology that slowly poisoned the conceptual subject, the thing that you're drawing, like a hand, a girl, a forest, not the specific art style. It kind of works with very broad styles like cartoon, but again, you need to set that as your targeted keyword. Glaze is the technology that protects art style. I did not glaze any of my work, I have not tried it yet, so how an art style Laura could test Nightshade, I do not know. Despite being obsessive defenders of this tech, these AI fans don't seem to know the difference between different types of image generators or how they operate. It's like they tested an antivirus designed for a Windows computer on a Mac. They're drawing conclusions based on a total misunderstanding of what they're even trying to do. On top of that, the way that these technologies work are cumulative. In the examples, the lowest level of poisoning was tested at 50 poison pieces, and at the time of the creation of this Laura, I had posted between 3 and 6 poison pieces, and basically all of them with different keywords so they only count for one. That's literally not enough to test, and part of the reason why I haven't tried glaze yet, because I have 15 years of unprotected art out there. I'm not willing to delete everything I've made in my artistic journey off the internet, so glaze has limited usefulness to me. I think it is worth doing if you just started to post your work online to make sure that the majority of what you made is glazed. I use Nightshade because every artist that uses it helps tilt the scales on the generators that mass sweep the internet. It's not about personally protecting me, it's about doing my part to protect all of us over time. If you want to add your art to that, please check out the link in the description. It's obviously not sponsored, but I think everyone who's able to use Nightshade, who can make it a little bit more hostile for the the AI scrapers, I think that can really be helpful. And speaking of that 15 years of art I've posted, even if they had used the type of AI image generator Nightshade actually protects against, I don't think we'd have an accurate test here, because if you look at the art style this thing is putting out, do you notice something about it? Does this look like the art style I used in my AI videos? Or does it look suspiciously like my art from 5 years ago? You know, when they could be sure that the samples were not poisoned? I suspect that when their initial outputs were not looking right, that they put in a bunch of my old work that they knew wasn't poisoned, and they still tried to use it as proof that Nightshade doesn't work. Now obviously this wouldn't have been an accurate test regardless for all the reasons that I've already said, but this implies a level of deliberate dishonesty as well. Let's talk about some ways that AI is getting pushed back against and some real penalties that some of these AI companies are facing. So first, Disney is suing Midjourney for their copyright infringement. This is enormous news for creatives. There's been a debate in the conversation about AI in whether or not the scraping of artists' work without their permission or payment is legal, and it seems like the answer to this is becoming clearer and clearer. If you're a Midjourney user, this should actually concern you, as Midjourney has a little clause in their terms of service agreement that says if they get fined for copyright infringement, they could try to vulture some of that money back from you, the user. The exact wording is this: if you knowingly infringe on someone else's intellectual property and that costs us money, we're going to come find you and collect that money from you. We might also do other stuff, like try to get a court to make you pay our attorney fees. Don't do it. What an adorable way to say that they're going to come after you for the infringement that's built into their tool. And especially since they are the only ones who know all the sources of copyright that they've stolen from, it would be quite easy for them to start lashing out at their own user base if Disney wins. You could generate something that infringes on a copyright you don't even know about, and while yes, technically you could say that you didn't do it knowingly, I do wonder how well a random individual would do in court versus an ultra-wealthy and highly connected corporation like Midjourney. It's pretty diabolical that they'd put something like this in their user agreement, in my opinion. The number one way that I knew that training data for AI is not something they can take from everywhere with impunity is because when they're taking it from a big corporation who can defend itself, they do pay. Why would Amazon pay millions of dollars to the New York Times for training data that was already free? Already, a landmark decision on a case like this has been awarded to the original source of the data, and because legal cases are often decided on precedent, it is possible that this will start a snowball effect, making judges more and more likely to favor the actual owners of the data that's being used. The very recent copyright infringement case against Anthropic could cost them over $1 trillion in damages, and if that goes through, that could completely crater this industry. They've said it themselves, if they have to pay for their training data, they have no product. The only reason that they've been getting away with what they've been getting away with so far is that they've been stealing from people who can't fight back. But every single time that one of these big corporations actually pays a lot of money for training data, it's going to be harder and harder for them to explain in court why some people's training data is just free for them to take and totally without copyright, whereas other people's copyrighted material when used as training data is worth $20 million a year. It just doesn't make any sense. I really do think it's going to be harder and harder for them to claim this. Mark Zuckerberg tried to argue that the books he stole from hundreds of thousands of authors was valueless, and in the same breath, he claimed that what he made with that data is the future and super valuable, and that he should personally profit off of that. Does that make sense to you? I don't think it makes sense. Even worse, they didn't even buy those books one time to use them. They actually stole them all off of a piracy website. And there's internal slides and documents from within Meta where they expressly tell their employees to never disclose this information because in no case would we disclose publicly that we had trained on LibGen. However, there is a practical risk external parties could deduce our use of this dataset. If there is media coverage suggesting that we have used a dataset we know to be pirated, such as LibGen, this may undermine our negotiating position with regulators on these issues. Just as a reminder, Mark Zuckerberg is one of the richest people on Earth, with a fortune of over $62 billion, while, according to the Authors Guild, the median full-time author's income is $20,000 a year, putting half of all full-time authors well below the federal minimum wage. I don't know how a man with so much wealth he could never possibly spend it all thinks he needs to pirate copies of work from people below the poverty line. I don't know how anyone can look at this and root for the tech billionaires over people who are just trying to tell their stories and barely scrape together a living. And for those of you who say that copyright shouldn't exist at all, honestly, you need to think about that idea for even just 1 second before it falls apart. If there was no copyright to good ideas, regular people like you or me would never be able to rise on our own merit. All the best stories could just be legally stolen by huge corporations, and the entire cultural art and storytelling scene would be dominated by faceless, soulless corporations, Big Fat Liar style.
I stole my paper.
How'd you come up with this idea?
Some ideas just come to you.
Yeah, from my backpack, you loser!
And no amount of dyeing their pool water blue would save us. I get that it's annoying that corporations like Nintendo and Disney go so hard on copyright that they punish their biggest fans. That's annoying and an obvious abuse of the copyright system in my opinion. But with no copyright at all, the entire creative field would collapse and all your favorite artists and writers and game makers would not be able to live. You just can't convince me that in our ideal future, people like Hayao Miyazaki, Donna Tartt, and Mitsuki have to live out their lives filling out spreadsheets or packing Amazon boxes so that these creeps can buy a bigger yacht or more asymmetrical Botox or another GMO baby with a stranger. It is really upsetting watching these ultra-rich people using AI to take from people who have so much less than them. Particularly when they're taking things like their songs, their poetry, their writing, their art, their memories, their dreams. This is a part of the ethical conversation around this that I have such a hard time talking to people about who don't just naturally get it. It seems like such a basic empathy question for me, but luckily there are many who are fighting back. So in January of this year, Ars Technica released this article about AI tar pits. It's a new type of actually malware that is designed to essentially trap a AI bot crawler, something that's designed to go through your website and just take anything that you got basically to train on, and it traps them in a labyrinth basically that it cannot get out of. It is an aggressive malware that traps AI crawlers and sends them down an infinite maze of static files with no exit links where they get stuck and thrash around for months. Once trapped, the crawlers can be fed gibberish data, aka Markov babble, which is designed to poison the AI model itself. That is pretty awesome. There is another version by a different creator that is even more aggressive called Iocane. It basically is really focused on generating a lot of poison. So instead of just nightshading, your own personal art, this basically would trap one of those crawlers so they can't go off other places, and it would just feed them poison over and over and over for months. The article's really interesting and I'll link it in the description, but ultimately it's just another reminder that there are tons of people trying to do the right thing, trying to help people basically push back against all of this. Just like with Nightshade and Glaze, OpenAI and other companies have just blatantly admitted that they're trying to find ways around these systems, even though again, they are only trying to defend people who don't want these crawlers on their website. They have to pay for that traffic, the website owner. Why should they have to pay for bot traffic that they expressly put a no robots sign on that you ignored? That's not fair, but they don't see the problem with that. They're completely fine burdening website owners, stealing from artists, stealing from authors to enrich themselves because they literally do not care about us. They only see their own bottom line, and they have no ethics, it seems like. I mean, hearing that Meta expressly was telling their employees to hide the fact that they were using pirated books in order to make their AI, and then publicly said that it was fine because all of these books had no value, this is some real supervillain stuff. And to anyone who has made any effort, however small, to push back against this AI invasion, then you are way more like the cyberpunk hero of the science fiction that these tech guys claim to be fans of than they will ever be. So in conclusion, a lot of these AI bros really don't understand what they're championing, I think. They either align themselves with these super rich, well-connected guys who they have literally nothing in common with, or they just genuinely have hostility towards people who have taken the time to learn a skill like writing or drawing. I think it's really telling that after I made my videos talking about Nightshade as a potential protective tool, and talking about why I don't approve of AI and I don't like it and I don't think it should be used on people's art, that the first thing that some people did was try to make a Laura with my art. I think a lot of people use AI to lash out at people. We see people making like revenge images of women that they don't like. We see people making propaganda. And in this case, because this person was so angry that I would even talk about Nightshade or talk about the downsides of AI, they decided to try and make a Laura of my art instead of like refuting any of the points I made or actually trying to like communicate why they have a different opinion. I also think this was probably someone who is so mad at the video's concept that they didn't actually watch it and just looked at the thumbnail, because sometimes it seems like they genuinely think I was challenging the AI community to try to make a style Laura of my art. If they'd actually watched the video, it's pretty clear, I think, that I don't think this should be done to anybody, and that that's not how Nightshade works in the first place. I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion, as well as all my little anti-AI posters. The posters are available now, and the proceeds are going to support Stop Killer Robots, an organization that in particular pushes back and lobbies against the use of AI in war, weaponry, and automated harm of human beings. Thank you so much to my wonderful members and patrons, including Alice Exley, Neko Omori, Roger Baker, Trexa Panda, Zio Reyes, Lucian, Shaola Ninja, Lexi Ramos, Lonely Zealot, Novel Goblin, The Mousy Mouse, Spark of Curiosity, Rosie Valentine, Paul Savanut, Frog Scourge, Clown of Clubs, Prince Piplet III, Celery Sticks, I'm a Potato, Honey Kitten, Nee Nico, Loro, Data, Lily McFarlane, Skitten, Gold Pikachu, Ace Wander, Jordan, QB, Jeffu, Songbird Galesworth, Sunshine, Whimsic, Hoodle Doodle, River de Goblin, Raz Taroche, Graveyard Moss, Grexius, Emmy Lightning, The Midwestern Menace, CB, Lucy Amajiki, Live, Ravenscrow, Zostelat, Keyhill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Light Jewel, Kadaria, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, Blah 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 Blah.